So, hi all. So, we're getting to the second part of Oracle Cloud Implementation Project interview question and answers for a test lead or test manager. So, last one we saw on the strategy part, all the various components. That was a big one, 20-minute video. Now we will have questions on basically what are asked more to a manager, right? So behavioral, it's not only behavioral, it's how you think and what's your expertise as a manager while running. So they'll ask questions like these. Okay. Yeah, before I start this, I just like to tell you have to add your own points from your own experience. This is, you know, just to give you an example to what can be the answer, right? But if you add your own experience and your points out of your experience, that would be really good. Okay. Okay. Tell me about time when testing was behind schedule. What did you do? So during Oracle in cloud implementation, SIT was delayed by 1 week because multiple interfaces were not ready and the test environment became available later than planned. Obviously, if the interfaces are not available, the test environment, how it can be available in time? When first the interfaces will be available, then the test environment will be available, right? So this was an answer, start of an answer when the testing was behind schedule. Okay. As a test manager, so basically these answers, no, what I do, very common thing: task, action, result. What was the task? What was the actions I took? And what was the result? So task was, as a test manager, I needed to recover the schedule without compromising testing quality. I need to recover the time lost as much as possible. It cannot be 3 weeks lost and everything is done in 3 weeks, right? And so as much as possible, and the testing quality should not be compromised. So this should be the first line. What actions I took? I prioritized business critical scenarios, started testing completed modules while waiting for remaining interfaces. So here completed modules means development completed. Okay. And I increased daily defect triage meeting. So there is a need to increase or to talk more on defects when those defects are really a bottleneck, right? It has reached the higher management. So you need to talk about it twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. What is the update? What was done? What was the RCA done? Where are we with the fix? What is the, where it is blocked? So if a senior management can help you, they can come and interfere, right? So then prioritize business critical scenarios, started testing completed modules while waiting for remaining interfaces, increase daily defect triage, reassign testers based on priority, right? So if the testers are there and they are working on a module which is not that critical, so we reassign them based on this priority, right? Worked with the integration team to resolve the blockers quickly. So the prior point, no, is basically you are doing a resourcing there, right, based on priority. I hope it is clear. Work with the integration team to resolve the blockers quickly. So yeah, you should work with the integration team to see how and what can be done to make it quicker, aligned with the business requirement, right? And you have to share the daily recovery plan. So this was your blocker, what all things you did from morning till end of the day, to reach to a resolution as per your ETA, right? Right. Now what was the result? So result was that we recovered the 4 out of 5 days lost, completed all critical tests and before UAT, and project went live on schedule with no severity 1 production defects. That's a good answer. We recovered 4 out of 5 days doing so, and we completed all critical testing before UAT. Critical how? We identified business critical scenarios, right? We focused on that, and we prioritized the modules which are completed. That's the planning, and we reassigned testers, so resourcing. So we put more people, right, to do it quicker. Okay, going to the next one. Tell me about a time you help improve the testing process. Okay, it's a nice one. So how you will answer this, how you will approach this. The situation is regression testing required at least 3 weeks for every Oracle quarterly update. So this is if you are part of a very big organization, you have a set of process. For example, CT does a quarterly release, right? Similar Oracle. So they have in that quarterly release means what? That 3 months, 4 months, whatever, 3 months is there. They will, in that 3 month, they will have development, they will have deployment, and you have to do the testing, right? So, and every release you have to show some improvement from the prior release. That's why you are there, right? So now here, this is the one of the thing he's telling. The regression testing required at least 3 weeks for every Oracle quarterly update. So what was the task? Basically we wasted time, right? And I wanted to reduce the execution time while maintaining quality. So what were the actions taken? That I identified the repetitive test cases. I introduced automation for stable scenarios, implemented risk-based regression, standardized reusable test data, improved execution tracking. All of these are big points in itself. I'll repeat. You identify repetitive test cases. You won't do repetition. Introduce automation for stable scenarios. So based on your experience, you know that A, B, C, D are not stable. You won't touch unstable scenarios, the basics of automation, right? Implemented risk-based regression. So you have a regression suite, and now you just focus first on what are the risky areas, and you get that risk-based assessment by a business, and if you have good knowledge, you can also do. This is also important. Standardized reusable test data. Okay, so you will do standardization for reusable test data, which means which if you have X, Y, Z, right? Now X is a type of data once consumed, right? It cannot be reused, right? And Y is the type of data once consumed, it can be reused and it cannot be reused based on situation. Z is the type of test data which cannot be reused. So 3 basic things. So I'm just giving an example here. You can standardize the reusable test data, improve execution tracking. So tracking and managing things are very, very critical for anything to go within time, and for the quality, right? So you have to improve execution tracking. So that's also very important. Then going to the next question. Before that, the result was regression time was reduced by 1 week with improved coverage and uh, faster release cycle. So the regression time was reduced to 1 week with improved coverage and faster release cycles. So if it is reduced to 1 week, your release cycle is quicker, of course, and 3 weeks to 1 week. So to do that, what you did, you identified the repetitive this. You did away with the repetition, right? And stable scenarios. So you made your automation more effective, right? You introduce risk-based regression. That is also a reduction in time, right? Standardized reusable test data. So your test failures will reduce, and you improved in execute. So basically, you are improving everything, right? That's how you have reduced the time. So it's a very good answer. Tell me about time you disagreed with the dev. So here the development team considered one defect as what you call low severity, while business user found it critical. Right? Task was I needed to ensure correct prioritization. So action taken was organize a triage meeting, demonstrated a business impact for the defect, use severity and priority definition as per our test strategy, right? Agreed test strategy, signed up test strategy, and involve business owners. I'll repeat. This is organize a triage meeting, right? You demonstrate the business impact of the defect, right? When you do that, you emphasize on the severity, impact, priority, how quicker it should be picked based on the definition, what you have defined. So these two are related, all are related actually, and you involve business owner so that your point gets what you call seconded, right? Okay. So next one, before that the result was defect was reclassified as high priority and fixed before UAT completion. Process improved future defect discussions. Okay, fine. Next one, tell me about a time you had multiple testing team working together. Okay. So the situation is Oracle implementation involved internal QA and implementation partner, external third party integration vendor, and business users. Okay, internal QA, our QA team, implementation partner. So implementation partner can be within Oracle, but other than QA, obviously, it can be external also. But I think looking at the wordings, implementation partner is internal, it's a developer maybe, and I mean not developer, whoever. It's a different set completely, a different group, right, would help you in testing, right? External third party integration vendor and business users. So this is a very nice scenario, and you have things like this, it's good learning. Okay, task, I had to coordinate testing across all teams. Yeah, so what actions I took? I defined clear responsibilities, RACI. I established single integrated test plan involving all the 4 teams we discussed. I conduct daily stand-up between all of the teams, right? Create a centralized defect dashboard, right? So defects are something which will involve everyone or few of the groups out of the 4 groups, and you should have a centralized defect dashboard. And held regular risk review meeting, that's also fair. You should have a regular. So what I would advise is that integrated test plan is a wonderful idea. So that would sort your ways, right? Then you do a scrum of scrum. They are having all their individual scrum. On top of that, you do bi-weekly scrum or scrum, and you just try to know. And if it's a very severe case, and you do daily scrum or scrum, create a centralized defect dashboard, and that can be on your Confluence page as well. You can create a centralized defect dashboard on the Confluence page, and so if it is a project dashboard, no, so you have maybe 20 projects, you can have a defect dashboard attached to your project dashboard, and hold regular risk review meeting. Yeah, you should have a risk review meeting, and that's how you let people know what are the risks and what happens if it is not done in time. Basically, how important is it to coordinate and agree to things, right? And the result was that all team worked in sync. Important. Communication improved significantly. That should happen. And project met its testing milestones. Superb. Let's move on to next. Describe a time you had to make a difficult go/no-go decision. So this definitely goes to a high level. So situation was just before production, three critical payroll defects remain unresolved. Okay, and what actions were taken? So I had to advise leadership whether to proceed with the release or not. Okay, so for that, what actions I took? I assessed business impact due to those three open defects. I reviewed mitigation options. So mitigations options, first we'll read all of these, then again I'll come back. Presented testing metrics and risk. Superb. Recommended postponing deployment. Okay. So first point, assess business impact. So business impact due to those three defects. How the business gets impacted? It's complete halt, or it's something which is blocking few part of the module or the whole module itself, right? So that's how you do business impact analysis in detail, and you review the mitigation options. So mitigation options here are something which you will get from your developer. They will tell that the fix is going to take 7 weeks, 1 month, whatever, but I have a workaround. So those workarounds are your mitigation options, one of them. Yeah. And presented testing metrics and the risk. So testing metrics here, basically you're talking what is the status right now. So out of these three defects, your 200 test cases are failed, or 200 are blocked and 10 are failed, or 3 are failed, right? 3 defects, so 3 are failed. Multiple modules means more can be failed, and blocked definitely, remaining all should be blocked. So that will show a very clear picture. Yeah. And if your test cases are prioritized also, right, as per business, then that has real value. And based on everything else, you recommend postponing the deployment. Leadership accepted the recommendation and defects were resolved within few days and assigned deployment, and the subsequent deployment was successful without payroll issues. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Here it is. So tell me about time when you managed a difficult stakeholder. A business stakeholder was unhappy because several defects were still open before UAT. I needed to maintain confidence while maintaining quality, of course. So action I took was conducted. So let's just, it's my bad habit of just putting it back in brain. Tell me about time when you manage a difficult stakeholder. Because the several defects were still open before UAT, so it's something similar to what we discussed before. So now I needed to maintain confidence while maintaining quality. Now conducted a detailed defect review, categorized defects by business impact, demonstrated the completed fix. You demonstrate completed fix. Explain workaround for low priority defects. We are good there. created a daily progress dashboard. So you highlight what is the update on your daily recovery plan, daily progress dashboard. That's nice. Okay. So this categorize defects by business impact. You can have graph for it. It's known as fire. What do you call that? Heat map. So you can do a heat map for that. That's helpful. Just use ChatGPT. Okay. Result: stakeholder gain confidence in the testing process. UAT proceeded as planned, and all critical defects were resolved before production. Describe a major production issue that testing failed to catch. After deployment, a payroll interface failed because of incorrect mapping of interface with the third-party system. So, a third-party system was incorrectly mapped to an interface. So basically, if a third-party system is incorrectly mapped to an interface, how it went to production? It means that testing was not done, right? So let's see what all the actions. So did RCA, root cause analysis, found the missing integration scenario and included in regression suite. Updated regression suite. Introduce mandatory end-to-end validation, correct? And enhance the RTM. Okay, let's see one by one. So did RCA, correct? Once you did the RCA, root cause analysis, you found that that particular interface integration scenario was missed in your testing. Okay, and so right now, as you are doing, the production is done, right? So it will be regression only, correct? So you will include that in your regression suite. Update, correct? Introduce mandatory end-to-end validation. Of course, in your end-to-end test cases also that would be missing. You have to include there. And you enhance your RTM. Of course, it is not there in your requirement because the scenario itself was not there. So it really covers everything. Issue was resolved within hours and similar integration failure were eliminated for future release. Correct. Now the next one. Tell me about a time you improved testing process. Regression testing requires nearly 3 weeks for every Oracle quarterly update. So this we already discussed in part 1, right? Time you handle the Oracle quarterly release. Okay, tell me about a time you handle an Oracle quarterly release. Oracle released a quarterly update which affected several HR and payroll modules. Okay, I had to validate business critical flow before production. Of course, reviewed release notes. These are the actions which I took. So while validating business critical flow before production, I reviewed the release note, conducted impact analysis, updated regression test cases, prioritized payroll, core HR, security and integration. Yeah. So there is some update which is affecting the existing HR and the payroll module. So definitely you have to prioritize core HR, payroll and the security and the integration. So basics, coordinated testing with business users. So wherever you need to help them for UAT or you need their help, right? You need to coordinate. Tell me about a time when you had limited test data. So I think that old one is done, right? Now we're going to next one. So just do once more. IB action was done for this quarterly release update. No, when So what all actions we do: reviewed release note, conducted impact analysis, updated regression test cases, prioritized payroll, core HR, security and integration, coordinated testing with business user. Okay. So based on your impact analysis, you know which all modules and what, so you update your regression test cases. And how you do impact analysis: first you see in release note what is getting updated, what was updated, right? Based on that you find out the regression test cases, you update them. The areas, you know, now you update the test cases. Now you prioritize in your testing those modules which are here, specifically payroll, core HR. Then you come to your security part of that, security test cases, integration test cases, those also you need to validate, and coordinated testing. Good. Okay. Now next one, tell me about time when you had limited test data. Situation: payroll testing required employee scenarios that were unavailable in test environment. Payroll testing required employee scenarios that were unavailable. Okay. So test data herein is the employee scenarios. So the data of employee, right? Data of the employees were not available. So in your test environment. So what action we did? We worked with the HR to identify representative employee profiles. So HR you will work with to identify representative employee profile, which will give you an idea on the data, right? And then created synthetic test data. You know now you create. Yeah, for your testing you cannot use, no, they have this all personal it will be, right? You have to create synthetic test data, mask sensitive information. There also you have to mask sensitive information, validate data before execution. Makes sense? Okay, so I think that's all for this video. Thank you all, and we'll catch up in the next one. Thank you. Have a good day.